Yo guys, what is up? It's Teach here, coming at you again with another video over on Ark Survival Ascended, and I'm going to show you 19 pro level, basically as high as you can get stuff for tips in order to play this game. All of this stuff is pretty simple to accomplish, but what the really good people at this game are doing are using tips like these in order to make themselves stand out a little more and be a little bit better. So anyways, I'm going to show you all of these. The reason that I have these is I've played Ark for over 12,000 hours, and I know some people are higher than that, but that's a lot of time. So I've learned a lot of stuff, and a lot of this stuff is new in Ark Survival Ascended. So if you don't mind, smash that like button, leave a comment below for the algorithm, and then consider subbing to the channel. All right, so tip number one, this one's actually pretty easy. It's a new introductory thing inside of Ark Survival Ascended. The hot bar and the smart hot bar. So normally you have a hot bar down here that you would assign whatever you want to that area, right? However, Ark Survival Ascended gives you access to something called the smart bar. Now, I have mine set to hold Z. You can basically set it to whatever you want. You can go into your settings and change the smart bar, but you can see it at the bottom of my screen, and you can use command, and basically what it's going to do is anything that can be used inside of your inventory is going to get added to the smart bar, and it acts just like your normal hotbar, but adds extra layers into it. So you literally just, the things that you're like, I don't normally set that to something, use the smart bar in order to access the stuff in your inventory. It'll bring you all your consumables and all of your weapons that are available. So that is a very useful thing. You need to start to learn to master that because it makes a big difference. And you can always turn it off by holding whatever command you did to turn it on. Now, the next thing, this is a big one actually that people haven't even realized is a thing. So there's two settings. These are both camera-based settings. Inside of Ark, you can go to camera. There's three major things that you want to change, but two major settings. Your camera field of view, you should make this as high as possible because it literally lets you see more on screen. The second thing you have an option to do is you can basically make it so you can have third-person camera offset. Now, what does that do? It quite literally takes your camera and makes it so you can see the center of the screen like this. Now, some people do not like that. In PvP, this is a huge advantage because it basically means that when your cursor is in the middle of the screen, just like this, your character is never going to cover that, and that's a huge advantage. Now, if you care more about the actual appearance of the game, turning that off can make a big difference as well, because all you have to do is just click that off. Now, the next thing that's part of this tip, right, is you can also change when you are on a tame, the field of view and everything in real time. So if I am on a Pteranodon right now, right, for example, I can actually hold a key and it's going to allow me to zoom in and out and choose how close or how far I want to be able to go. I have mine set to P. I'll show you the setting, but basically you can control it, and then you'll always be that way when you get on that tame. You just have to figure out what you want and then hit the key that you want it and that you use to open it. Now, in order to access that, just so you can see, you would go to keyboard, and then mine will be set to P. You can see change dyno camera mode. Make sure you figure out what key you have, because that's a huge advantage to get additional space to see, or to make it nice and close range so you can see a lot better. Now, the next thing, this is a thing that some people don't realize the value of it, but it's actually the walk command that was introduced into Ark. So you can actually use it. Mine is currently set to J, walk. And it's a very useful command for a lot of different things. A lot of people have, like, basically you've got this, which is like a medium sprint, and you've got a full sprint, and you can't like toggle a difference between the two. So if you want to move more slowly around corners and check things out, this J command allows you to do a slow walk, and that makes a big difference. And you can set it to whatever you want. If you go into your settings, just look for the walk and set that to whatever you would like to set it to. So that's the next one. Next thing, this one is a super easy one. If you do not already have console commands turned on, you can go into your settings, advanced, and then turn on console access. And the people that are really good at Ark are using some basic commands whenever they enter a server. This is going to allow them to get a huge advantage in PvP, as well as allow them to get a huge advantage in PvE. These are also commands that will greatly improve your overall access and ability to play the game. A quick one, just so you can see it. If I go inside of the ocean, there is a fog that exists. However, you can turn ocean fog off by typing in r.volumetric fog 0 and hitting enter, and it'll turn off so you can see the entire way into an ocean. Now, you can always turn that back on by clicking on it and then backspace 1. All of a sudden, you bring it back. Now, the commands that you want to use that are going to help you a ton, I'll give you a couple of basic ones right now. Volumetric fog is going to make it so you can turn on and off fog both in water and out of water. Shadow quality, turning that to 0 will, 1, it's going to increase your ability to play the game because it's going to increase your FPS, and 2, it's going to make it so people can't hide in bushes as well. Volumetric cloud 0 is going to turn off the entire cloud above you. So just so you can see that, oops, I forgot to hit enter. You have to hit enter after all of these, and then it will apply those commands. You can see that it literally just removes the clouds. Then I'm going to go ahead and enter the, if you hit 1 on that instead of 0, that's going to make it so clouds exist again in Ark. Now, those are some big ones. You can also use the shadow quality, the material quality. This will change the actual ability to see the different qualities. And then you can turn water on and off literally by using 0 and 1. Check this out. So it's kind of cheap, but you literally can turn it on and off just by doing that. And it's a big advantage in PvP, even in PvE, if you're trying to find some basic resources and stuff like that. You can combine all of these commands in order to actually take a huge advantage inside the game and actually increase your SPF or SPF drastically and whenever you need to. So that is a huge benefit. Those kind of little mini tips will save your life in this game. Now, the next thing that you want to know inside of this is know your buffs, because whenever you take a curry, Kalian soup, anything in general that's kind of like a buff for your character, you can click on the show buffs option, but you should start to memorize these because a lot of these things give you really helpful things. People usually throw these out and don't actually use them. However, each one of them is usable in a certain situation. Shadow Stake is fantastic for PvP purposes because it makes it so you don't have screen shake, especially when you're using a sniper rifle. Battle Tartar, you can see this right here. It's a lower cooldown, but basically it boosts your melee damage and run speed, allowing you to have increased stamina regeneration, but it will basically cause you to lose health a little bit, so that kind of sucks. But you can see the Kalian soup, there's a hypothermic insulation and reduced water consumption, and then Freya, hypothermic and reduced food consumption. Then even something like a focal chili with increased movement speed, increased crafting speed, you can start to combine these and quite literally increase, you can see it right now, I can double my move speed just by taking both of those right off the bat, which is a big advantage because you can use this, especially in a PvP purpose, pop some of these. You can outrun pretty much anything in the game now because move speed is not a thing. Now, there are like 10 different buffs that you can get, and each one is useful in a different situation. For those of you that are throwing away the buffs, you need to use them because they are a major difference maker inside of Ark. So hopefully that's a tip that you take advantage of and start to learn those buffs. Now, the next thing, this is a new introduced thing inside of Ark. Basically, when you're using your crossbow, you used to have to go into your inventory, switch the arrow, put the arrow on, go out of your inventory. However, you need to start to learn the R commands. The R command is going to allow you to access all of the things that you can change at any given point in time, including arrows and any wearables that you have on, like a tech helmet, all that kind of stuff. And it allows you to quickly change this while you're actually moving. Once you get good with this, you can still sprint and change your arrows and stuff like that, which is a big difference maker. And it's going to give you a huge advantage in PvP, and especially in PvE when you actually want to be able to, you're being chased by something. Knowing how to use that R, holding R in order to access all of these different things is a big game changer. So that is your hot wheel. Learn how to use that. That's 100% one of the most useful things they added. Now, another feature that they added, if you are stuck or something is going on, or maybe you're afraid you're going to be knocked out by another team or whatever you want to call it, they now have a force respawn option. If you hold your cursor over your specimen implant, you'll see a timer go down. If you don't see it, I'll show you one more time. You can watch that timer go down right there. And once it hits 0, you can force respawn. So it's commonly called the /suicide command inside of Ark, but I prefer calling it force respawn, but that's me. Go to your bunk bed, and then all of a sudden all of your stuff is where you left it, and you get a free respawn from anywhere you want. Now, some people are like, what's the value of this? It's more valuable for a PvP, or if you're stuck or something along those lines. It's a big game changer for those of you that haven't realized that in the past. I'm gonna go and destroy wild dinos here because I'm not dealing with this right now. Yep, nope, we're not playing this game. Thanks, buddy, bye. Yeah, so anyways, huge advantage in order to be able to have access to that. And then obviously you can go back to your body if you want to and get all of your stuff back. Use that force respawn. Now, the next thing, this is something that continued over from Ark 1 into like Ark Survival 1.5, if you want to call it that. But if you have a raft, you can basically use a raft to get some of the most insane loot strategies in the entire game. You need 2 players in order to do it, however, so keep that in mind. But if you put someone on the front of a raft inside of a swamp with a Therizino or a mammoth, and one person is driving the raft around, the other person is swinging the Therizino or the mammoth, you will never get over encumbered. So it allows you, I've got a couple of videos on it if you've never seen it before, but it allows you to gather things at a crazy rate. And that includes rocks, because if you go to the beach on pretty much any map, but specifically the island, there's a lot of harvestable rocks. So if you put an Anki or a Doedicarus out in front of your boat, you will be able to harvest without ever encumbering those as long as you have 2 people. So definitely take that strategy and use it. Now, the next thing is another very valuable thing. If you do not have access to water or are unable to bring water to where you are at, the new system that is kind of set up here, as long as you have water tanks, they will passively generate water using a method that Ark meant to do called condensation. So if you're on a map and you do not have the ability to get water to your area for some reason, if you leave a metal tank down and just wait, it takes time. Usually it takes about 30 minutes for the actual process to start kicking in. Each one water tank will basically supply 1 crop with water permanently. So you need to think about that, but you can literally use a water tank, just 1, in order to harvest things. Now it will continue to pour water and not actually waste it. If you start drinking out of the tap, it's going to cost it to go back to 0, which is a little bit of a problem, obviously. So next on this list, this is a difficult one for a lot of people to understand, so I'll show you. All right, so basically what this is that when you are raising babies towards the end game, there are 2 things that you can put in the troughs. Whatever they like to eat, which is usually a berry eater eats berries or crops, and then a meat eater is going to eat meat. However, you can use basic kibble. I'm going to go ahead and move this up here. Actually, I can't, so why not? You can see that I can basically have more kibble per, and this is on an improved, I guess, a different server. So you can stack more kibble in a stack than you can stack raw meat. And kibble for any dinosaur, whenever it eats it, will give you a 100 food bonus, whereas raw meat will only give you 40, and the same thing with berries, only 40 per bite, 40 food per bite, whereas 100 from kibble. So when it comes to raising babies, if you have kibble available, all you have to do is get a bunch of dodos and make a ridiculous amount of kibble, which is easy to do. You can actually make your raising so much easier because kibble weighs almost nothing, and you can use it in high quantities in order to make sure that if you're going to leave a trough or a trough, whatever you want to call it, for a long period of time, it spoils at a much slower rate. So it's basically going to let you keep babies alive longer. So kibble is better for feeding just because 1, it lasts longer. 2, it provides 100 food to the 40, which is the next closest one. And 3, it weighs less, so you can stack more of it on top of itself or into a baby dino. Using kibble to raise is kind of like a meta endgame strategy. So it's not really something you can do early game, but towards the end game, that's a fantastic thing that you can do. Now, next thing on this list, this is newer, I guess. If you have an Archaeopteryx or whatever, Archaeopteryx, I don't know what you want to call it. If you leave these things in the redwoods and leave them on wander, usually you put a bird and leave them on follow that bird and on wander, they actually produce sap now. I don't have any in its inventory because we're not in the redwoods, but if you have one of these and leave it on wander near a large redwood tree, they will collect sap over time. Now, this is a new ability that they've kind of picked up, and as long as, again, you have them like following a pteranodon, they will never actually leave far enough, but they gather a ridiculous amount of sap, much better than actually using one of the max capacity, which is 20, inside of a sap tap. The Archaeopteryx will be much quicker and it'll give you much more sap in the long run and a lot easier to actually take care of as well. Now, the next thing, this is one of the most popular things that is never used by kind of mid to end game tribes. I don't know why. So using a shield and holding your secondary attack just like this, I'm going to go in K mode so you can see it. 100% if you're squatting will block all damage from in front of you. Now, the reason that this is incredibly useful is because in PvP, when someone is trying to shoot you with a sniper or a weapon or a turret or anything along those lines, you can use a shield just like I am using to walk up or move away. Now, one of the most popular things that you can do is actually use a shield, have a flamethrower available in your hotbar, and you can block 100% of damage as long as you crouch. Crouching will block 100% of incoming damage. as long as you are using a shield. Now, this can also be useful in PvE. If you are taking on something that can shoot, or maybe one of the bosses, you will reduce damage just because the shield, as long as the shield has durability left, will continue to block all incoming damage. They are fantastic and people use them more. Now, this is another strat right now that I'm about to tell you that is really useful for endgame stuff. Now, you can actually overheal inside of Ark. Now, in order to do that, I'm going to go into GCM so you can actually see what's going on. GCM. But using GCM, I mean, not GCM, but I'm using GCM to show you, you can actually use a blood pack, which will increase your health if you eat it over time. You can eat cooked meat, which will increase your health over time. Specifically, mutton will increase your health over time. You can use those buffs that we talked about that will increase your health over time. And then you can also make recipes that will increase your health over time. Now, why would I say that? Now, the reason that a lot of people don't have issues late game with dying and stuff like that is they'll have their hotbar filled with their resources that they can consume. Now, this is called overhealing because all of them individually provide a buff. So if you have a recipe that will increase your healing, plus mutton, plus blood pack, plus one of the brews that will increase your healing, and med brews as well, you can actually make it so that you are healing hundreds of health per second, which can be very useful, obviously, especially if you're in a PvP tribe. Using different methods to heal yourself is something that is incredibly popular, especially late game for tribes that are really, really good. Instead of just running around with med brews, carry those 5 things that I just mentioned and you will increase your healing by a ridiculous amount. Now, that's a good one. However, the next one is something that people do not take advantage of because they don't like it for some reason. So I'm going to go ahead and show you something. Greenhouse, right? So greenhouse, when you have a greenhouse inside of Ark, you actually produce enough berries to sustain multiple baby dinos per thing you place down. Late game, if you have a large greenhouse, you can actually produce enough berries to never go on a berry run again. Now, yes, some people are like, well, I can get tens of thousands of swings with a Bronto, but you'd have to have a teleporter in order to get the Bronto back to wherever you're going, or a cryopod. Kind of hard to do. If you just build yourself a greenhouse, you never even have to leave your base. Late game tribes that are really good at this game have massive greenhouses with every type of berry, every type of everything they could ever need, and that allows them to make all kinds of stuff in their base as well. Greenhouses, if you haven't seen my greenhouse, how to build some ultimate greenhouse strategies and all that kind of stuff, check that out because that is a massive thing that endgame tribes are doing that most people are not. Now, this is the next thing, and this is one of the most useful tames in the game, and people just don't realize why. The Ovis. The Ovis actually has 2 statistics that you can use. Inside of the Ovis's inventory, you don't need anything. You don't need a saddle. You don't need anything at all. However, you can actually make it so you can get tens of thousands of resources per Ovis, as long as you increase their stats specifically. If you increase an Ovis's health, right? Now, I'm just going to, for example, I'm just going to go right here, right? You can get tens of thousands of raw mutton because it's going to increase the amount that you're actually going to gather from raw mutton when you increase an Ovis's health. Now, if you actually basically use a shearing technique or use scissors or anything along those lines, you can add wool, but you can also get a ridiculous amount. Where is it? That's the one I was leveling, just making sure. You can get a ridiculous amount of hide if you increase its food stat. Pretty nice. And I'm just going to go ahead and show you right now. Food stat will actually increase the amount of hide that you'll get out of it when you're swinging on it. Now, it will basically mean that you will sit here for 900,000 years in order to try and actually get anything from this. I'll go ahead and show you what I mean by this. So with this guy, right, if I hold E on it, you can see I can slaughter this option right now. Once I slaughter the Ovis, if I sit here, if I really wanted to, this is going to take me 10,000 years to go through. Having Ovis late game is huge. You can get a Giganotosaurus and it'll take them like 10 bites to get it all. But this is on 1x settings and I'm already up to 145, 152. I'm not going to sit here. I'm not going to be able to be here long enough. The higher your Ovis's points, not overall level, but their points are, the higher and more stuff that we just talked about that you're going to get. Now, if you have a chainsaw, when chainsaws release, we're talking 20, 30, 40,000 resources, which is kind of crazy, obviously. Now, it's the same thing if you increase, like you saw, this guy had the health. Health is going to give you the ability to get more mutton out of it. This is a 1x everything that I'm using, so I'll go ahead and show you. You're going to increase that ability to get mutton out of this guy just by doing that. Now, that is one of the massive end game things that you can do. And yeah, you can also use scissors and shear in Ovis, and that'll help you a ton as well if you're looking for wool. Ovis are really very, I mean, you can see that I'm already at what, almost 200 mutton. Yeah, so you can get a ridiculous amount as long as you increase those two statistics, and that is a lot of end game stuff. Now, new and introduced into the Ark Survival Ascended, this is your next tip. You can only have 3 generators nearby each other. As soon as you try and put down more than 3, it will prevent them from doing so. There is, however, a way to place these so they're far enough away. I'm just going to keep running until you can actually see, right? It's a very large distance, so you can only have 3 generators nearby. Notice how it's still seeing. Okay, so there we go. So now we're at 0. But it's quite a range, and you have to have these at a distance apart. Now, you will get to a point where you can see that's 3, and I can no longer place this nearby if I have it. So you need to be careful where you place this. So the solution to this is if you actually make a giant triangle out of this, you can cover an entire area. See how I can now place this, even though it says I was too far away? So I can actually use one there, one over there, and then one over here. And then using a triangular network instead of just stacking them near each other, you can cover an entire map with generators not too close together. Now, the benefit is they do wireless powering now, so you want to be able to stack these, like I just told you, in triangles. Large triangles, basically just make these big old 45-degree angles and run out, and you can have massive areas of coverage with a generator. Now, that is more, technically it's more than 19 tips, but those are 19 advanced tips that hopefully help you a ton. These are kind of pro level strategies that will help you get much, much better at this game. So hopefully you enjoy those. Now, if you don't mind, smash that like button, leave a comment below for the algorithm, and consider subbing to the channel. All right, Teach out.